Welcome to I call it maybe an overview of the FSL now that we're in season 4. In honor of our unfortunate disqualification through some technical difficulties for Team Far Out Esports ZA, I thought maybe I'll give a little bit of insight to some of the other people that don't get to play the game or would like to play and, would like to get a little bit more insight. So this is a bit more in depth than the introduction that Giant Software provides, and this is also a little bit of a way of exposing the nuts and bolts underneath so that people can see what's going on and learn a little bit. Now, first things first, rules, how things operate. You'll see I have a browser open, fsl.giants-software.com, and that gives you access. You do not need to register. This is just a normal page. Login and everything will give you team access and access to be able to compete and that kind of thing. So there's a lot more there. But for now, just to get an understanding of the game and the rules and everything behind it, this is it. Yeah. So what we're interested in at the moment is under the media side, there are 3 different tabs. The rulebook, definitely you should read. There's a lot there in there around prize money and that type of thing. But what we're going to be looking at is the game overview. It's giving it a chance to load. Okay, there we go. Alright, so the official stat sheet. So this gives you a breakdown of everything around the vehicles and the points and what their horsepower ratings and all that kind of thing is. I'm going to quickly break down what the different vehicles are. I'm not going to go into detail per vehicle, but there's 4 main categories on the vehicles. The important things to know is the 4 categories. Teleloaders cannot hook any trailers or balers or anything like that, but they can load and they got the extended boom. Stackers are basically tractors with the front loader on it that has forks on, either forks or a silage fork, and it can hook a baler and a trailer, and it's probably the most versatile. It's core to the game. Without a stacker, you cannot play the game. Narrow tires, slightly more powerful, slightly faster, generally, and they can actually drive through the fields without doing any damage. And if you're driving a narrow-wheeled baler, you can also drive through the field with the baler behind it without any issue. Then you get the heavies. These are much more powerful and generally a lot faster. They are faster overall than any of the other vehicles except for the telehandlers. And they got a very specific task where they can get across the field at high speed, pull the bigger balers, all that kind of thing. Now, if you look at this, there's an HP rating, and these will become important when I show you the balers. And then also your speed, and then your points to pick. Now, heavy tractors, 4 or 3. Ignore the Fed. It is a default vehicle, and it's not really heavy. It's an underpowered vehicle that can't really do anything except pull a load. And if you don't select a vehicle on the selection screen, you get either the New Holland, the Manito, or the Fiat. Now, the points to pick, you have 20 points to pick from. That needs to cater for your team picks and your individual picks and the perks that you may have. You've got a total of 20 points. So if you ban something that takes points and you pick expensive vehicles, the person that's lost in the queue to pick player 3 may not be able to get a vehicle or may not be able to get a perk if you use up too many points. Now, none of the tractors need any points to ban, and the banning it's a bit of a deeper, longer discussion. Now, here's just an overview of the picture of the vehicles. You can see there's the 2 teleloaders, and then you've got all the stackers all the way down from the Lintner down to the Manitou. Then you've got the narrow wheel tractors, and then you've got your heavies. Now, what I was saying about the horsepower being important, different tractors have different horsepower. Now, to pull a baler, you need to be able to run at full speed a minimum horsepower of 300 or 200 or 150, depending on the baler that you pick. Now, if you take, for instance, the little Lintner or the John Deere, they can pull a baler, but they pull it at much lower speeds, so you lose out on that. So even though you're getting a really good stacker, you are not getting across the field fast enough to actually make it worthwhile to run that vehicle. That is pulling the tractor at normal speeds without it being running, that's reduced, as well as when the thing's operating, that's also reduced. So there's just no benefit to it unless you have a little bit of an emergency. Now, balers, much like tractors, have different types of vehicles. There's different values to them. You've got the big fast working, or the big load capacity with the wide load being the Fendt and the Kroner. You've got the New Holland and the Case, which is a little bit more power needed. It operates at moderate speed, but it's got the broader pickup, but it can take 3 bales. And then you've got the small balers. They can only take 2 bales. They take less horsepower, but they have a moderate size pickup. So depending on what you're trying to do, if you've got forks, you can take a John Deere or Kuhn, and you can go and have something and pick up 3 bales, and you can run quite a light tractor on here, so you've got something more versatile to stack with. Now, you'll see on the side here, there's 3 bales. These 3 units, the Kroner, the New Holland, and the Case, can each take 3 bales. The units, the Kroner, New Holland, Case, and John Deere, can stack as well. So you can actually offload. As you offload, you can stack the bales on top of each other. It takes a lot of practice, so there is a skill set to it, but it can be done. Then you've got the Case and the New Holland that are narrow. They have narrow tires, meaning they can actually get through the field without any crop damage when running it. Then you've got the Horsch Titan wagon, which is the default wagon that sits in the middle of the field. This is how you get your grain back. There is a perk that gives you a man truck, but for now, the Horsch Titan, it unloads at a rate of 1.5 up to a point, and then it scales down to not having a multiplier anymore. And we do go through that a little bit later, and I'll explain it to you. Right. Here are the harvesters. Now, the harvesters, you could spend an hour explaining all the different perks and all the different values to them, but a couple of key things are the work speed. So your Ross-Cell mash runs at 22, but your John Deere and your Case only runs at 15. However, the Ross-Cell mash has a 10.5 kiloliter tank versus 14.1 and 14.4, and the blade width of the Ross-Cell mash is only 9 meters wide, whereas the John Deere and the Case are 13.7. So yes, they're only going at 15 kilometers an hour, but they harvesting 13.7 meters wide out of the field, whereas the Ross-Cell mash is 22, but it's only doing 9. So the Ross-Cell mash is at a little bit of a deficit if you had to do the calculation across the two. Now, the other thing is the offload of these tractors. The Massey Ferguson runs at 19 kilometers an hour. It does 12,500 liters of grain, but and it has a 12.2 meter offload. But it can offload it. It's got 12.2 meter cutter, but it's got a 780 liters per second offload. That and the Ross-Cell mash are the fastest, and the slowest being the Case in New Holland. So it definitely depends on what mix you get and what you're trying to achieve. There's a whole lot of factors to it. Now, if you pick the Ross-Cell mash, you can spawn a harvester on the field as part of your lead-in. Now, if you select this vehicle, it only costs you 2 points, whereas the Ideal, and the New Holland, which are the two most popular in game, they cost 4 points, and the others all cost 3 points. To ban costs 1 point. All right. Now, team perks. There are only 4 team perks. There was a 5th team perk where there was a Anderson bale trailer that you could pick up, collect bales with on the field. That's been removed for season 4. If you look, you've got Big Haul working from the biggest down. Big Haul gives you a MAN truck with a 59,000 litre capacity. It has an enhanced offload multiplier of 1.5, so it offloads 1.5 times faster than what the horse does. And these benefits stack. So if you get a offload multiplier as a drop, and you're using Archimedes, all of those actually compound and make it even faster. So you can offload this Big Haul in about 13 seconds, I think, is if you have Archimedes and you have the Big Haul. If you're in the Big Haul tractor or truck and you have a team perk, it runs that out much faster than the horse, for example, without perks. All right. Now, herbicide, you do not have any weeds in the field, so if you look at the harvesters, there's actually a weed impact factor over here. If you hit the weeds in an ideal, you will not get any grain, you will not get any straw on the ground, and you will be slowed down while you're going through it. But if you do the Ross cell mash in the same space, no impact, you go through no impact, so you're still getting grain, you're still getting straw, you're not being slowed down. And then the other vehicles like the Massey is only a 0.6, and the case of the New Holland are 0.9s. So herbicide takes it away. You can have nice straight lines, which helps the guys who are baling. If you've got lots of erratic harvesting that's happening, it makes it difficult to pick up all the straw in the field. So you have these, it takes longer to get the baler full. It takes a lot more time to manage the vehicle as you go. So herbicide or drivers in the harvesters, they know what they're doing to keep the longest, straightest kind of routes possible. It makes a big difference in how good the quality of your bale collection is, and then ultimately running back to to drop off. Bottleneck, it raises the two innermost bridges on the opposing team. So those are the two bridges to the side. So you have the land bridge and the small bridge next to that as the bridges that you can go over. That affects the opposing team, so you can limit how quickly they can get bales back. So every bale drop, if they're dropping 3 or 4 bales, they're adding 3 or 4 seconds to that route because they go the long way around. And then if they're dropping, they need to come and U-turn and then go back again. And then they also only have the one location that they can use, so it slows down the whole process. Unstoppable, it does not actually show it here, but there is a limitation on Unstoppable where if the opposing team is using Unstoppable and I drop grain and it hits 2.4 multiplier on my side, my belt stops. So essentially I can only get a 1 times multiplier because I can only use the bottom door. So it is a tricky perk. It is really effective. My belt never stops. It always runs 50% faster than what it normally would do, but there is a limitation that if I've got Unstoppable and the other team drops too much grain, they'll stop their own belts, and vice versa, obviously. All right, player perks. These are just enhancements per player. Now, a head start, there's no waiting. You get in the vehicle and it goes immediately, whereas normally you would have a little bit of a spool up and then the vehicle would go from there. 6 cents gives us a 20-second head start, gives us 2 potential locations where the perks are going to drop, and so that you can actually see if it's worthwhile to go after it or have a better sense of where they're going to be so you can be closer, especially when the 4-minute perk drops, because that is contested between the two teams. Archimedes, it will unload your harvester or your baler, your harvester or your auger or your big haul truck 50% faster, and only when you're operating them. So if you get out of the vehicle, that perk doesn't apply to the vehicle because you're not in it. Runner, you can run significantly faster. We've kind of clocked this. It comes in at about 60 kilometers an hour. It'll stay next to the skinny wheel tractors. the case skinny wheel tractor, it'll actually stay next to that while you're going over an area. So it is a tool that gets used to go and fetch tractors and get equipment in place and just get everything sorted out as needed. Then under pressure, it reduces the amount of straw you need to make a bale to a factor of 1.1. So it doesn't change the straw on the ground, it doesn't change the bale size. What it does is it changes the factor of which that goes through the pickup. So you've got a 3,500 liters of grain on the ground, you'll get 3,850. So you'll be able to make one 3,800 size bale per pass. Then easy stacker, it actually gives you a lot more tolerance on the elevator, so that when or the conveyor belt going up into the barn door, so that when you're loading you can drop the bale a little bit skew, not a lot but a little bit skew, and it'll actually tolerate that and make it a little bit easier for it to get up. Whereas if you don't have this perk, you have to be pretty accurate. You can't go too far off the sides, you'll have bales dropping off the sides. Right, then the drops. There are 3 drops. There's the 8-minute and 2-minute, which is what is on screen at the moment. Bale drop, that gives you a defined number of bales. It differs per team, and it's based on gameplay, so you could have anywhere between 1 and 4 bales drop. Normally, if the teams are fairly close, it's 1 or 2. If there's a big gap, there is an advantage to the smaller teams. Bridges load and bridges raised. It will lift, lower or raise bridges on the opposing team or on your side, depending on which one you pick. Crazy tool is like under pressure. What it does is that it reduces the amount of straw required to make a bale. So again, straw on the ground, the bale size doesn't get changed. The pickup, it factors that in. So you can have as much as a 2 times factor on that. So a 3,800 bale, you'll only need 1,900 liters to actually make that 3,800 bale, but it'll only run for 30 seconds. So you can't run out, grab it, run back to your tractor and then start baling, because there's just not enough time to use it. Direct delivery, as you're harvesting in the field, it goes straight to your silo. Herbicide, if you haven't picked a herbicide perk to start with and you're harvesting in the field, if this drops and you select it for a period of time, normally around 60 to 90 seconds, the weeds in the field will have no effect. So you'll still get stored grain and you'll not slow down. Silo closes the opposing team's silo, so they can't dump grain for a period of time, 60 to 90 seconds. And then speed limit and speed up. Speed limit will limit the opposing team by a factor. Speed up will enhance your team by a factor. Alright, then at the 4-minute mark, there's the super drops. So these 5 super drops are can be game changing. So bale points is just straightforward. 20, 40, 60, 50, whatever number of bale points, whoever gets there first gets it. Bottom boost, it'll give you your multiplier in your bottom gate. So if you're getting it times 2.5, each bale will give you 25 points in the bottom gate. So timing around this, make sure that you're ready for this type of thing, and if it drops and you get there in time, you can shove all those bales in that bottom door and get your top gate scoring out of it. Then there's Lord Baler. It will move a number of bales, 1, 2, 3, or 4, from the furthest point of your field that is not in a baler, and it'll move it straight into the onto the conveyor, into the silo, into the load area at the top, and score the points for you instantly. Bale withering will wither bales on the other team side. So if you get bale withering for 2 bales, it'll actually destroy 2 of their bales. And then multiplier switch is it'll swap the multiplier between teams for a period of time, normally quite a short period of time, but it'll, if you've got a 1.8 and they got a 2.2, for the duration you'll have the 2.2 and they'll have the 1.8. Alright, so there's a few factors here. The system is scaled so that you can't just blast through on everything to the maximum all the time. So you're unloading at your grand silo, you get maximum yield for the first 30,000 liters. So 30,000 liters, you will have a factor of 1.5. So when you're offloading, that 30,000 liters will be worth 45,000 liters. But from the 30,000 litre mark to the 42,500 litre mark, there is a curve, a diminishing curve, that 1.5 factor that you get with the horse or the big haul trailer or truck will diminish at a defined rate up until 42.5. And at 42.5, you will get half the value that you would have gotten. So if you're getting 1.5 multiplier on your horse trailer and it's on 42.5 thousand liters, you will only get 0.75, so half of that 1.5 factor after 42,500 liters. Your fill volume, to get to a multiplier of 3, you need 35,000 grain. It goes in increments of 3,500. So you can work out exactly how much grain you need to put in, add the unloading multiplier above that to this, so you can factor in that 30,000 liters. If you had to put all 30,000 liters in and you had no competition, you would have exceeded the amount you needed by 10,000 liters because of the factoring that's in place. But obviously when there's competition, everybody has the same factoring, so the grain is fairly even. Then your unload speed. Your harvester does not unload at the same speed whether you're in it, moving, or out of the vehicle. So when you're stationary, 200 liters per second, no matter what the sheet says. So this over here, the 660, 780, this discharge rate goes down to 200 if you're not in it. So if you're going to park it, the ideal takes a minute and a half, 86 seconds to offload the full load. If you just drop it and you get out and you run away. If you're not going to be harvesting with it, that's fine. But if you need to use that vehicle quickly, that's a problem. Now, the other benefit here is when it's moving, you can boost your offload up to 200%. Add to that the perk of Archimedes, where you can get a 50% improvement on your speed. You can actually offload an entire ideal harvester of 17,100 liters. You can offload inside of about a 14-second time scale, or as much as 84, 86 seconds. Right. When you push your bales in, there are modifiers that will give you an advantage. So you get bale-tastic at 50 points, bale pressive at 100, baling spree at 150, and then impossible bale at 200. Now they stack, so when you drop 10 bales, you don't have to start over for the 15 bales. It keeps on going to 15, then 20, then 25, as long as no one in the opposing team drops a bale. As soon as they drop a bale, that resets. Now if they drop the bale at 8 or 9, they'll get 30. 13 or 14, they'll get 50. 19, they get 80. And 24, they'll get 120. So they can counter your baling score. So a good strategy would be allowing the other team to get up to 8 bales and then working on your bale-tastic. So you get the 30 points plus you putting your own bales in. And potentially you get 50 points because you get bale-tastic. So timing is critical. If just drop bales and you drop 10 bales with with the multiplier being standard, you're looking at 250 points for 10 bales. But if you drop standard, the same kind of rule, but if you counter and you drop 10 and you get your own bale-tastic, that's not 280. If you each just dropping as you go, that's only 200. So there's an 80-point drift between just dropping bales normally and everybody just dropping as they go, or timing everything so it has the maximum kind of yield. Right, then the one thing that kind of sets up teams for, the potential difference, the win or lose, is there is a factor for first bale. Now, I kept on saying the best that I've seen in competition was 138, but I saw 142 in competition that's happening now this weekend. I believe it was Bednar or Lintner that dropped it. Essentially what happens is you go out, you grab a baler, and you go and pick up straw. You have your teams harvest for you, and as you got enough for one bale, you stop baling and you run through and you drop it in the bottom door. The timing of that, based on this Wolfram Alpha curve, it'll determine what the scoring, and here's the calculation over here. So you can work out exactly what value you can get. I don't see a score ever going above about a 144, and it's just there's not enough time. Maybe 145 is not enough time to go higher than that unless you're in a training environment and you're kind of cheating, well, not cheating, but you're dropping straw and that type of thing. The other thing and factors in here is you're competing with other players. So you may compete with another player for a baler and you might not get it. So that would negatively affect you as well. Alrighty, so I'm not going to go through the changelog, there's no need for it. So there is an observer mode, and I will put a link to this document in place, and I'm not going to go through this, but essentially you can watch your team play or watch other teams play, obviously with their permission, and obviously if the server's set up to do it, there are a few factors to it. Then the last thing I want to show you is the training mode. Now training mode allows you to actually go in and train with one user or two or three or five, 6 being a full team, and it'll start automatically. But essentially I'm going to go into training mode now. Control T starts it, Control B is drop a bell, Control S is drop straw, and Control F is fulfill the vehicle you're in, which would be the horse trailer or the man truck or a harvester. You cannot fill a baler like that. And then you can also force what gets dropped as part of your 12, 8 and 4 minute drops. Alright, so I'm going to move over to the game itself. So yeah, I've got I'm just logging into the system, so I go into the international channel. Now on there's a whole series of scrim servers. Because the tournament is live at the moment, you can actually see the different teams. I think they're resetting at the moment. There's one team over there, Trelleborg versus My Insanity. See, they are busy playing that game at the moment. Now this is my server. I don't have a password on my server, it's just open for anybody to use. But essentially that list over there, you will see a whole lot of scrim servers. I think they go up to normally about 8, and you can then go and watch that game, or play with your team and practice and whatnot. So what I'm going to do is it's no sound. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you what the load up area looks like, and then I'm going to just grab a few vehicles. I'm going to go through the startup where you do the selections and everything, and then as soon as I'm done with that, I'll go and load a few bales just to show you what it looks like. I'll harvest a little bit off the field, and that's it. Alright, so there are a few settings in the beginning. This is just controller settings, and this is very much user specific. I prefer having my steering back speed high as possible. Steering sensitivity I kind of play between depending on which vehicle I'm going to be running, and the rest I'm not too worried about. For team mode to work, you have to connect as a captain. You can fill up players on either side. You can have one on either side. You can have whatever mix you like, as long as it's not a total of 6. Team captain would press Control T to start the game. And first thing is banning phase. So now you'll note there's a timer at the top. There's a number of points at the top. And you can see on the right, if you look over there, I can have different points bands. Now the list I showed you earlier will actually show you what those all are. Alright, so I'm not going to worry about banning anything because I've obviously got no competition. And when you're in training mode, it just does the ban instantly because there's nobody there on that side. Alright, so first thing is the team perk. So for the purpose of this, it doesn't really matter what I pick. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and say big haul so I can show you that. And I'm going to spawn in a baler and a harvester. Now you'll see 4 points for the harvester, 2 points for that, and 5 points for that. So I'm using quite a chunk of points selecting that harvester. I used up 11 points. So now I basically have 3 points per player, depending on how you're going to structure it. So I'm just going to take a runner because I want to get around the field a little bit. Let's just take the Massey. So now I've taken up 4 points. So I've left my team with 5 points. So they have to either sacrifice a perk or something of that nature to make sure that, you know, everybody's okay. So while you're in training mode, it will automatically drop the Manitou forklift as your first option, and then it'll drop the skid steer for your second option, and then the Fiat as your third option. Right, so my grandkid's just going a little bit nuts. Don't worry about the hanging, it does it sometimes. Found that every fourth or fifth time I load in, it'll kind of hang. Alright, so this is your startup area. So all three players would come out of this area. There is actually a little bit of a map on this side. So you can actually see what that all looks like. Now, if you look from up top here, you can see, I can only see a few of the pedestals. Now, there's, on the left there's a harvester, and then I can see from the yellow block squares in my map on the left that all the balers are at the bottom. And I can see the harvesters are all the way off to the side. So let's do an example with the harvester. So with these podiums, you'll see this podium is green. When you jump into a vehicle, the podium goes yellow. Now if you look on the map, on the right hand side of the map, there's the second one from the left. Corresponding, the mirror image of me, there's a yellow dot with a black cross through it. If I get out, it goes green again. If it's yellow, it means the other team can't grab it. But it doesn't mean you've claimed it yet. As soon as you drive off, it gives me claimed. Now it becomes a red cross. Alright, so if I go now and so you would then, the teams would challenge for this. Now if they haven't selected a spawning of a vehicle, then you could actually go and do a rush. Now a rush means you've picked up all four of one of the vehicles. Now all four of one of the vehicles is all four harvesters or all four balers. Now if you get three harvesters and they didn't spawn one in, that means they have to do everything with one harvester. Now same rule applies with the baler. If you pick up three, then they're limited to only one, which is going to definitely negatively affect them. So there is an argument to be had to go and spawn in and grab all the harvesters, even if the guys have spawned their own one, if they're not paying attention. Right, so I'm not really doing this too, I'm just spawning in bales. Now normally, if you look at the time, 12:56, normally by about 14 minutes, somebody would have already come up and done that. So that's first bell. Now that's that scale that I was talking about. I only got 82 points because of when I dropped it in, but if I got in at the 14-minute mark, I would have gotten, you know, probably about 140, 142, that kind of range. Right, so now you'll see at the top there's the score and the time in between, and below that there's white lines, and then there's a yellow block with a multiplier in. Now that multiplier determines what score I get per bale that I drop. Now let me just show you what it looks like when you drop a bale skew, and then I will go and load a whole load of grain. Alright, so there's the first drop. It's dropped there in the middle of the field. I'm going to go past that way now and just show you what's there. The closer you are, you can actually read them from a distance. Now that bale should drop off because it's very skewed. But if you had the easy stack option, it could potentially go through. You can see the doors at the top are actually narrower. So there we go, that one dropped off. Now the other thing about this area is you've got the bridges are linked. Your side and the other side, if you look above the score, you'll see the center block on each of those are orange. That means it's going up. And as soon as it's up, it'll go red, and then you'll see there's a timer inside of it actually showing that that's now going to count down and become available. So if you go over a bridge, you lock that bridge for both teams. Alright, so now I've got bridges raised and speed limit. So if I had grabbed those, I would have had that advantage. So let me just go do this. I picked the MAN because I wanted to be able to just spawn in the grain so I can show you what it looks like with the multiplier. Okay, so Control F fills the truck. Alright, so momentum is a thing, so be careful not to brake too late. So you can see how quickly this runs up with this vehicle. If I took the horse trailer, it would take a lot, it would be a lot slower. So now I've stopped their belt because I hit a 3 times multiplier. Anything I drop beyond this point, except when it's filling that last white block, is wasted. It doesn't affect the other team. So if I had 20,000 liters left in the truck and I dumped it all, and the other team then came after I dumped and then put their load in, I wouldn't be able to counter them and be able to, get the multiplier back to where it belongs. Now, if you look where the red cross is and the white arrows are, when I dropped, before I hit ×3, you would see they would have a whole bunch of arrows, and I had just 2 arrows. So what that means is their multiplier is lower, but their belt runs faster. And my belt is slower, but I'm getting more points per bale. Let me just get back to the other side. Alright, so you saw previously the speed at which that bale went up. Now when your bales go slower, you want to try and improve the number of bales you get on there as much as you can. So alright, so there we go. Now see how slow those bales go up. Now I'm not at that level of stacking yet, but the guys that are really good at their stacking can actually stack these bales up so close to each other when it's on that speed that there's almost no gap between the bales. But that also means you got more bales, you are more prepared. Okay, so that is now the other drop, so it's just here, and bale multiplier. So I've already got a ×3 multiplier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rush across and I'm going to get my bale multiplier going again. So I should get 45 points for that last bale that I just dropped. $45 points. So if I had a lot of bales there and I was stacking, I would get 45 points per bale that makes it up in the time. Now, getting it onto the belt in time doesn't mean anything. It actually has to pass through the door in time. So So 45 per bale that you drop in. Obviously, I'm cheating here. Now, Bale-tastic, if you look on the bottom left, I've got 10 out of 15 combo. Now, if the other team had to drop a bale, that would reset. If they dropped a bale before I got to... let's just get that there. Okay, so if they had to drop a bale now, when it's red or now, they would get the 50-point advantage. But if I drop another one before they get a chance, I'll get another, I'll get the bale score, plus I'll get the 100 points. Now, in competition, the chances of you ever getting to this third multiplier, even the fourth multiplier, is almost non-existent. You either have to be exceptionally good or the team you're playing against is really pathetic. But now, so that was a little bit ambitious. Okay, and right. Okay, so that is in a nutshell. I mean, there's no point going through the rest of this. Uh, you've got two main fields that you operate against, and you've got to work out a strategy that gets the bales back as quickly as possible. If you haven't taken the MAN truck, you've got the horse trailer in the field over there. Now, if you have done this without skinny tires and you haven't cut the line open to your trailer, you can get there, but from 58 I go down to 15, 14. So, you can't drive through the field. There's a lot of things that affect you and slow you down and that type of thing. So you got to be careful. Alrighty, so that's it. I'm just going to go and do Force a Win and just show you what it looks like. Just by picking up all the harvesters off the podiums. That's if I can get there before the time runs out. Okay, so I didn't take anything off. So let's go and grab some harvesters or balers. Let's do balers. Doesn't really matter which one. So if I go now and I pick up all the balers, I'll get a baler streak when I take off 3 balers. So 1 claimed. You have to wait for it to show claimed, otherwise it doesn't give it to you, and it doesn't take it off, make it unavailable to the other team. Now there's Lord Baler. If I had bales on the field, it would actually take those bales and drop them in as score. No, did I? Yes, I did just go the wrong way. Righty, 2 more. So I don't have. Actually, that's a good question. If you don't have bales in the field, will it give you the 2 bales you picked up? Right, so now I've got a baler streak. So that is, there's no points advantage to that, but I know the other team only has access to 1 baler. And if I pull this last baler off, please press X when you pull it off. That opens up the vehicle. Oh, the baler. Alright, so breakdown quickly. This doesn't stay on the screen too long. It'll tell me what my score is in total. It'll show me how many bales I got in the bottom, how many I got in the top, and what my total is, how many are undelivered, how much grain I dropped off, 58,900, and how much actually came with a multiplier. Because of the man, I get a multiplier there. Any undelivered grain, so it's still in the harvester or still in the man or still in the horse. Then the picked up drops, I only picked up 1, normally you would see both, and then the picked up super drops. And that's it. Welcome to the FSL. I hope to see many of you out there. There are scrims from the Giants team. Terminated does a scrum on Friday nights for English-speaking players. That is 1 a.m. Central European time. So I think it's about 7 or 8 p.m. Mountain time in the US. And then we've got the German broadcasters, where I think it's Jenny that's involved there. She does does scrims on Wednesdays. That is for German-speaking players, but the guys are very accommodating. If you go in with your own team, you'll be able to happily play against them, and they'll accommodate you wherever they can. All right, and that's it. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time, and under the 45-minute mark.